folks, David Hubbell here with Mirliton Man of Mobile, and I'm going to show you how to plant a Mirliton that's been overwintered. I was able to get one to sprout this past winter, and I know a lot of people are trying to get a hold of some, but I was trying to keep this one primarily for educational purposes. Plus, I really think you need at least a minimum of 3 vines in your backyard if you allow, because in case one of them ever dies out, at least you've got 2 other backups. I always also, like I say, encourage people to try to keep a few to sprout and pot over winter. If your plants come back, then you give them away, but if they don't, you got some insurance. So anyway, today I'm going to show you how to plant it based off of the information in mirliton.org. So in planting your Mirliton transplant, you really want to take into consideration a couple things. First of all, the roots are going to be shallow, and they're going to run about a 12 foot diameter. So what you want to do is really, from a spot that you're going to pick, work on kind of having it well mulched and kind of turned over. Now, unfortunately, I'm kind of constrained from the standpoint of my room that I can let it grow. I've got it kind of near the original plant, but I'm going to plant it about 4 foot away, and I've actually cleared about more of an 8 foot diameter than a 12 foot. So we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of moving it a little differently than what I've done in the past, but you see where the spade's in the ground there, or the forks in the ground, that's going to be where I'm going to put it. Now this soil, you can tell, is pretty dark and rich. It's underneath a big oak tree, so the pH is slightly acidic, and that's kind of what you want. Haven't actually done a soil test here, but other parts of the yard it's in about a 6.5, 6.8, and there's a slight slope here. So when I get a lot of rain, it'll go from left to right, and so it stays pretty well drained here. So those are things you want. You want that pH range, about a 12 foot diameter for shallow root growth, and you want it well mulched, and you want it well drained. So what I've done here is I've dug a hole about the depth of the pot it's in. It's maybe, when I take it out of the pot, it'll settle a bit, and it's maybe not quite 1.5 times the diameter, but just the typical transplanting rules that you would typically do for plants. And so I'm going to do that, and then we'll cover it back up. You can see that there's still part of that original Mirliton, but it's all shriveled up now, so it needs to get in the dirt and get some fresh nutrients. The other important part I should have mentioned is that you do want it in a shady, or not shady, but a sunny location, or partial shade's okay as long as it can grow into some sunlight. So you can see where I'm at right now. I've got some partial sun, and I get some full sun here. Maybe not quite the full 6 hours it recommends, but at least in the afternoon I get a decent amount, maybe about 4 or 5 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do this and film at the same time, so wish me luck. So my plan was to try to maintain as much of the root structure as possible, plus also keeping that growth from the original seed Mirliton. Unfortunately, that fell off, so I'm assuming it's all on its own with roots now, so it's probably the right time. Like I said, this is April the 9th or 10th, and should be free of all frost out here in the Gulf Coast area, so it's the right time to plant it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish, maybe add a little bit more just to make sure it's secure, but it's about the same depth it was coming out of the surface, and then I'll probably put a tomato cage around it too to offer some support. Alright, so got it planted in there. Typically, if you were doing it in the ground and you kept the seed Mirliton, you'd still want about 1/3 of it showing up like right out of the ground, but in this case we've got a pretty decent root structure. Sorry I couldn't get more filming of it, but plant's doing well. It's been a pot since I think it was January 1st, so it's about a 4-month-old transplant. I'm gonna put a cage around it to do a couple things, give it something to grow on, plus also to make sure I don't come around it or anybody else comes around it and accidentally cuts it off. That's happened more than one time from people I've heard who've been trying to grow it. Either kids will mow it over or the lawn people will mow it over. So if you can come up with some sort of barrier to protect it, that'll be helpful too. Alright, so now I have got it caged up in some reinforcement wire. My dad built these several years ago for his garden, my late father did, and they're about a 2-foot diameter, maybe 2.5 foot. But as you can see, it'll protect the base from getting too close with any type of weed eater. You can still get by, but at least it'll be a physical barrier to remind you. And it gives you a good structure to grow up. I can already take some of the longer vines and start trailing them and training them. And so hopefully it won't be much longer. It'll take off on its own and then it, join the original vine up there, and see if we can improve our chances of Mirliton production here in West Mobile. So I'm going to go ahead and water this with just a gallon of water for now. One other comment, if you read the information that Lance has talking about fertilizing the soil, doesn't really take much. I think it was LSU Ag Center had recommended an 8-24-24 mixture of fertilizer, but as he points out in the post, a lot of those are only bought in 50-pound bags from your seed stores and places like that, co-ops. So for the home gardener, you may need something more like a 3-4-4 mix, and I think he recommends a particular brand. Not that that matters per se, but only about a quarter cup of that is needed. And even with the 8-24-24, you're only looking at maybe a teaspoon of that for the whole system or for the whole plant. So kind of play it by ear and see. Oftentimes I go without really ever doing any extra fertilizing, but I do have some citrus trees in the vicinity, so I end up fertilizing them, so maybe they get some of the plant gets some of that as well. So anyway, I'm going to do this just a gallon for now, and then if you like what you see, please like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel David J. Hubbell, and share with your friends who are Mirliton growers or want to be Mirliton growers, and ask them to like our Facebook page at Mirliton Man of Mobile, and sign up for Lance Hill's Mirliton.org email updates and subscription. Thanks again, and appreciate you watching.